What I have with me today is a car which has been the flagship of brand Audi in terms of performance, in terms of technology, in terms of design, in terms of engineering. In fact, this has been the car which has showcased brand Audi for a long time, the R8. The R8 was born as a sports car and meant to take on some of the supercars of the world like the Ferraris, the Lamborghinis and the Porsches. And the years that the R8 has been around, it did manage to achieve some of this. But today we have the R8 on the show for the simple reason that something has changed in it, something that will enhance its performance further.
The R8 was born in 2007 and a year later in 2008 was launched in India. The R8 is now available here in India with a basic 4.2-litre V8 engine, a V10 engine and a V10 Plus, which is what we drive today. Additionally, 99 units of the special edition were sold called the LMX.
When you peep in through this huge glass which covers the engine bay here, you realize what is really going to enhance performance. What's tucked in here is a V10, or what Audi calls the V10 Plus. And this is instead of the V8 and the V10 with which the R8 was selling so far. And what this will do is produce more brake horsepower and liven up things once you get in behind the wheels. And this is what Audi is offering its customers in India now. If you thought that the front of the R8 was stylish, then I think I'm more impressed by what the rear end offers in terms of styling. Wide wheel arches which covers fat 305 tires sitting on stylish alloy wheels, and this gives the car a very nice low squat sports car like appearance. Add to this fighter jet style twin exhaust, a diffuser with more carbon fiber and of course very stylish LED tail lamps. I think the rear is the most beautiful part of this car. In fact, the R8 is easily one of the best looking cars in the market today. If you step inside the R8 expecting to be greeted by a very sports car-like feeling, then you're not going to be disappointed, because this does look and feel like a sports car. Small sporty steering wheel which is flat bottom and leather wrapped, seats that will hug you tightly around fast corners, a sporty instrumentation panel and of course paddle shift for fast gear changing. It has got all the elements that make it feel like a sports car. But then it combines luxury very well also. Leather wrapped seats and all the functional elements that you need in a car like navigation, a quality stereo system, and in fact this is a car you can probably drive on an everyday basis, except for the fact that it just comes with 2 seats. But then there are a few oddities here as well. For example, you don't find the seats electrically adjustable. To move it forward or backwards for that matter, you have to do it manually. And this comes as a bit of surprise, especially as this is positioned as a top-end sports car. Then if you look at the gear lever here, you find that there is no parking position. So if you are stationary on a traffic light, you have to immediately pull the handbrake, otherwise the car may roll. But when you switch off, this does manage to get onto the parking position by itself. But I think this needs a parking position.
The R8 was conceived as a driver's car with pure unadulterated power coming from a mid-engine architecture, which fed power to all the wheels through the quattro or the permanent all-wheel drive system, but to make things more lively with a bias towards the rear wheels. Styled as a coupe with 2 doors and a slanting roofline, the R8 is small and compact, sitting on a 2.65-meter wheelbase, which essentially makes it a 2-seater, but at the same time liberates enough space for the driver and 1 passenger. The result is that the R8 at first glance looks all of a sports car it is intended to be. And when you press the pedal, you do realize that the power which comes out of the V10 Plus does indeed transform the R8 into a car which promises immense fun.
As the naming suggests, this Audi R8 is powered by a V10 engine, and this is a monstrous 5.2-litre engine which churns out a mammoth 550 brake horsepower and gets to the 100-kilometer mark in just 3.5 seconds with a top speed of over 300 kilometers. Well, that's very impressive, isn't it? And every time you blip the throttle, you know that the spec sheet hasn't really been lying. In fact, the acceleration here is almost brutal. And you'd love it if you are a speed junkie. The way this car really accelerates is very pleasurable. You are going to enjoy this if you like quick cars. But then that's where most of the good things are going to end. Because if you have paid as much as you would have for a car like this, you are bound to compare this with any other supercar. And when you do that, this is where this R8 falls short, especially in three departments. Number one, a fast car needs really fast brakes. And this car is lacking in that. The brake modulation is just not up to the standards. It's a little spongy and the pedal pressure is really skewed towards the end. So you really have to anticipate your braking, and initially when you start driving the car, it does catch you a bit unawares. I don't like the pedal locking up towards the end. You know, it has to be better modulated. That's the number one thing. The number two thing is the gear shifting. This engine is made it to a 7-speed gearbox, which is just as well, but the problem is that the gear shifting is really jerky. It's not very smooth. Whether it's upshifting or downshifting, it just kicks in and you can feel the gears grating down or up. And that's not really very nice. I would have preferred a much smoother gearbox. And the third thing is that the ride quality, even by supercar standards, is rather harsh. The little aberrations also filter in and you feel the steering rattling, and it's almost bone jarring on a bad road. It has to be somewhat adjusted for roads like India. I mean, this is really, really hard. It's almost bone jarring. If you see an R8 looming up into your rear view mirror, two things you will immediately notice. Number one, that you're being followed by a real fast car. And number two, that you are also being followed by a very good looking car. The R8 is quintessentially a sports car. Fast and gorgeous to look at any which way you look at it. And this is why I feel so many people have become a fan of this R8. After having spent some time here with this R8, all I can tell you is that if you are planning to buy this R8, what you're going to get is a very nice looking car, and it's bound to turn heads your way no matter where you go. And the interiors here very nicely complement the exterior styling. It looks stylish, well made, and you have all the features that you would expect from a top-end sports car. But what really disappoints me a bit is the fact that this is not as drivable as a supercar, because the spec sheets will tell you that this is a car which is really impressive. V10 power, 550 brake horsepower, 0 to 100 in 3.5 seconds, top speed 317 kilometers. You know, it really reads very nicely. But once you get in behind the wheel and you start driving, you realize that all this does not really translate into great drivability, because the gear shifting is really jerky, the brakes are not progressive, so it's still not really there in the supercar league. And on top of that, Audi is going to price it at around ₹2.3 crores, which is very expensive, and it puts it in the supercar league. In fact, you can get a thoroughbred Porsche 911 for less than this.